Welcome back to B Master 79. In this lesson we are going to plan and write a complete Band 9 answer to an ielts writing task 2 question about fossil fuels and renewable energy. We will brainstorm the ideas together, build the paragraph plan, and then read the finished essay one paragraph at a time. Here is the question. While fossil fuels are still the main source of energy for most countries, others have started to rely on renewable options such as wind and solar power. Is this an advantageous or disadvantageous trend? Read that twice before you write anything. Notice that it does not simply ask you to discuss both sides. It asks you to judge the trend. Let us decode it. The task type is advantages and disadvantages, and an opinion is required. The background tells us that most countries still depend on coal, oil and gas, while some have moved towards wind and solar power. Your job is to decide whether that movement is advantageous or disadvantageous. The most common mistake here is sitting on the fence. If you list benefits and drawbacks without committing to a verdict, you cannot reach the top band for task response. And notice the word trend. You are judging a direction of travel, not renewable energy in isolation. Now, how to spend your 40 minutes. Give about 5 minutes to decoding the question, choosing your position and brainstorming. Write for roughly 30 minutes, straight through, without redrafting. Then keep 5 minutes to check your articles, your verb endings, your plurals, and your spelling. You must write more than 250 words, and somewhere between 280 and 320 is comfortable. Decide your position before you hunt for reasons, not afterwards. Here is my brainstorm with both sides on paper. On the advantages side, almost no emissions once the equipment is built, which means slow warming and cleaner city air. Energy security because nobody can embargo the sun or set a price for the wind. Costs that have collapsed so that solar is now the cheapest new power in many markets. A whole new industry of manufacturing, installation and maintenance jobs. And the simple fact that sunlight will not run out, while oil and gas reserves will. On the disadvantages side, a very large upfront cost which often needs state backing. Output that comes and goes, with nothing at night and little on a still day. Grids that must be rebuilt and storage that must be added. Job losses in coal, oil and gas communities. And the land use and manufacturing footprint of the equipment itself. Now look at the shape of those two lists. Most of the drawbacks are transitional. Most of the benefits are permanent. That asymmetry is exactly what gives me my position. So let us turn that observation into a thesis. A weak thesis says, I think renewable energy is a good thing. It states a preference and nothing else. The strong version says, this shift is a decidedly positive one because it tackles the two fundamental weaknesses of fossil fuels, even if the transition itself is expensive in the short term. That sentence does 3 jobs. It takes a position. It gives the logic behind the position, and it quietly predicts the essay because the weaknesses will be tackled in paragraph 2 and the expense will be conceded in paragraph 3. Every paragraph that follows must serve that one sentence. Here is the 4-paragraph plan. Paragraph 1 paraphrases the prompt and states the thesis in 2 sentences. Paragraph 2 makes the case for using the environmental argument and the energy security argument and develops both of them fully. Paragraph 3 concedes the drawbacks and then explains why they carry less weight than they used to. Paragraph 4 restates the verdict and stops. 4 paragraphs and 1 job each. Paragraph 1, the introduction. Although coal, oil, and gas still dominate the energy mix in most parts of the world, a growing number of countries now generate a substantial share of their electricity from wind turbines and solar panels. In my view, this shift is a decidedly positive one because it tackles the two fundamental weaknesses of fossil fuels, even if the transition itself is expensive in the short term. Notice there are no figures and no announcement of what the essay will contain. The first sentence paraphrases the prompt using different vocabulary, and the second commits to a verdict and gives the reason for it. Paragraph 2. The case for the clearest advantage is environmental. Burning fossil fuels releases carbon dioxide and fine particulates that accelerate global warming and poison the air of major cities, whereas wind and solar installations generate electricity with virtually no emissions once they have been built. A second and less widely discussed benefit is energy security. Sunlight and wind cannot be embargoed or priced by a foreign cartel, so a country that harnesses them domestically becomes far less exposed to the volatile fuel markets that have repeatedly driven up inflation and in several cases precipitated political crises. Two arguments only, but each one is developed. The mechanism is explained, and then the consequence is explained. Two deep points will always beat four shallow ones. Paragraph 3, where I concede and then answer. The disadvantages are genuine, but they appear to be transitional rather than permanent. Renewable infrastructure demands enormous upfront capital, its output fluctuates with the weather, and communities built around coal mining face real job losses. These objections carry less weight than they once did, however. The cost of solar generation has fallen dramatically over the past decade. Battery storage is improving quickly enough to smooth intermittent supply, and the renewables sector has itself become a substantial employer capable of absorbing retrained workers. This is the concession paragraph. I admit the problems honestly and in detail, and then I take them apart with specific reasons. Conceding a point and then answering it is far more persuasive than pretending it does not exist. Paragraph 4. The conclusion. On balance, then, I regard the move towards wind and solar power as a clearly advantageous development. The disruption it causes is temporary and can be managed with sensible investment, whereas the gains in environmental protection and national self-sufficiency are lasting ones. A conclusion adds no new arguments. It restates the verdict in fresh words and leaves the examiner holding the central logic of the essay. Here is the whole essay on one screen, 282 words. Pause the video and read it straight through because the thing you are looking for is flow. See how the thesis in paragraph 1 predicts paragraph 2 and paragraph 3. See how the words transitional and permanent return in the conclusion. A band 9 essay reads as one continuous argument, not as four separate boxes. Here is the language bank. These are the phrases worth stealing. Dominate the energy mix instead of are the most used. A substantial share of instead of a lot of. Tackle a fundamental weakness. Accelerate global warming with virtually no emissions, which is a precise hedge rather than an absolute claim. Energy security, which is the exact technical term. Exposed to volatile markets. Precipitate a crisis. Transitional rather than permanent, which is the whole argument of the essay in 3 words. Carry less weight. Smooth intermittent supply. Absorb retrained workers. On balance. And national self-sufficiency. Learn them as whole phrases, not as single words. So why would this sit at band 9? Task response. The position is held from the thesis right through to the conclusion. Both sides are addressed and every idea is extended rather than merely listed. Coherence and cohesion. One job per paragraph, with the cohesion carried by meaning and reference rather than by bolted on linking phrases. Lexical resource. Precise topic vocabulary such as energy mix, intermittent and particulates, used naturally and with accurate collocation, and grammatical range and accuracy. Concessive clauses, passives, relative clauses and complex noun phrases used accurately throughout. Now an honest caveat, and please take this seriously. This is my own quality check against the publicly available ielts band descriptors. It is not a score awarded by a certified examiner. Now your turn. Write paragraph 3, but argue that the disadvantages outweigh the advantages. Keep exactly the same shape, concede and then answer, and simply flip the verdict. Post your paragraph in the comments and I will read them. If this walkthrough helped you, give it a like and subscribe to bmaster79. I will see you in the next lesson.